I'm here with Mr. Charles Dudley at his martial arts school. And can you tell me, what is your title?
My title in Korean is Hwanjangnim. That means master. I am the Master Regional Instructor for the state of Texas for the International Clinch Missile Federation.
All right. So I know that you're called the Kid Whisperer. Why are you called that?
Because I guess that I have a way of communicating to the children in ways that they can understand the values and principles of martial arts, respect, manners, etiquette, self-control. You know, I find that so many times the parents say the right things to the kids, and they're trying to teach them the right things. However, the children are not understanding. And the reason is because the parents are applying their methods of communication and relating to how they grew up, of course. But that world is completely different now. And how children understand things is different than what an adult's methods of understanding. And so I just interpret. And I put it into a way that a child can take ownership of himself. You know, most kids think and are told constantly, you know, you have to do this because in the future this is going to be. Well, no child can wrap their head around this because they don't have enough life experience. They don't understand what that means. Right. You know, they don't pay a mortgage, they don't pay a car note. Right. You know, they just get and go somewhere, right? So, how is it that we relate to the children? How they can take ownership of these principles and it puts them to effect now, which makes a difference in their life now. Well, that's what I do.
Now, something else that's very impressive that I've noticed over here is that you have a Hero of the Year for Martial Arts 2009. Yes. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
That was a culmination of a 10-year war for all practical purposes. We had, here in the state of Texas, there was a push to try to regulate martial arts schools, gymnastics schools, dance schools, cheerleading schools, all the youth sports type activities as licensed daycare. The problem with that is not that we don't want to be held accountable or anything like that, because we hold ourselves accountable. But in the case of martial arts specifically, under the daycare provisions, we can't even exist because we train in all different types of weapons. You can't have weapons on the premises of daycare.
Right.
We do sparring, kicking, punching, we teach self-defense. You can't do that on the premises of a daycare.
Right.
We also have, you know, our disciplinary measures. The disciplinary measures of daycares is so restricted that they're completely ineffectual. The most that you can do for all practical purposes to a child, no matter what he did, you know, little Johnny, you shouldn't have stabbed Susie in the eye with that pencil, you know. The most that they could do, they have 2 approved restraint holds, which are pretty useless. And the most they can do is have that child sit in timeout for 1 minute for every year of age they are. And even then, they can't sit facing the wall. They have to still face the group so they won't feel ostracized. Well, to a child, that's meaningless. That's nothing. They don't even recognize that as any kind of repercussions. So therefore, the behavior doesn't change. Well, that's not true in martial arts, or any other sports for that matter. Just like in football, for example, you know, the kids start messing up or whatever, coach makes them run laps. You can't do that in a daycare setting. It's illegal. So we work on the auspices of the parents. We're a representative of the family. We work very closely with the family. And it's understood, whether it be martial arts or gymnastics or football or any other type of youth sport, well, those are all illegal in a daycare setting because the government, or the state in this case, does not trust their people. Well, back in 2008, for example, they had 35 deaths in daycare facilities. Now, to be fair, not all of them were licensed. Most of them were, but not all. Well, in the martial arts, you know, we didn't lose a single one. So Why is it the state has to come in and tell us how to run our program when they don't understand what we do? So I led the fight against the state. Like I said, this was the end of a 10-year war, but it all came to a head in the last legislative session. And I was able to get legislation pushed through correctly and saved our industry here in the state of Texas. The other problem for the rest of the United States would have been is that Texas is one of the 3 bellwether states. You've got California, Texas, and Florida. Normally, most legislation that goes throughout the United States starts in one of those 3 states. Had this gone through as restrictive as what they tried to make it, it would have made a lot of problems for everybody. In our case here, it would have shut our industry down for all practical purposes. It would have devastated the gymnastics industry. As a matter of fact, gymnastics was, the National Training Center is here in Texas outside of Dallas. They were going to move it. It was that serious. So that's where this award came from. I was named Martial Arts Hero of the Year for 2009 because of the victory that I led in saving martial arts.
Wow. That's amazing. That's a long battle.
Yes. You know, we teach leadership. How can we teach our sons and daughters if we as parents and educators don't stand up for the right things? Yeah, I went against the state, and the state's a 900-pound gorilla with unlimited resources. I'm just me. However, that peer pressure to a child is just as formidable as the state would. They threatened to bankrupt me. They threatened to shut me down. How could I not stand up against it? I went for about 9 months, putting about 80 hours a week, just on this fight alone. And then running my martial arts school on top of that. I was exhausted. And every time people would tell me, Charles, there's no way you're going to win this. I had legislators tell me, Charles, there's no way you're going to win. You're up against too much money. I would get very discouraged a lot of times. And I would come back into school, I'd look at those students, there's no way I could quit. How can I teach them to stand up for themselves if I won't stand up for what's right, regardless of the outcome? So I just refused to quit. We as parents and educators, we have to demonstrate the behavior that we want from our own children.
This is my girl MJ, and this is On the Go.